My son left me in a nursing home on my birthday. What he discovered changed everything forever. Frank sat in the small common room of the nursing home, a faded 80, staring into the pastel-colored walls that had seen better days. The floral patterns felt miserable, somehow echoing his own loneliness. A half-eaten birthday cake sat on the table before him. The sweet smell wafted through the air, a stark contrast to the bitterness that lingered in his heart, an aching reminder that today, like many others, he was forgotten. It was supposed to be a day for celebration, but instead, it only magnified the troubles with his only son, Jake. He thought about the time he first taught Jake how to ride a bike. On a sunlit July afternoon, he remembered the laughter they shared, the pure joy radiating from his son's face. Now that joy felt like a distant echo, replaced by hollow silence. Out in the bustling world, Jake struggled too, caught in the relentless grind of making ends meet. A struggling grocery store, a family to support, and the weight of societal pressures buried him alive. Still, guilt ate at him like a parasite. In his frantic pursuit of providing for his children, he sacrificed time with Frank, thinking it was what needed to be done. A bitter cycle of responsibility swirled in his mind, and though he loved his father, he felt trapped between two worlds. But on this dreary birthday morning, change was on the horizon for both of them. The phone rang, its shrill ringing snapping Frank out of his thoughts. He picked it up, his heart pounding against his chest, hopeful for a connection, even if sparse. It was Jake, his voice shaky and distant as if standing miles away. "I got a call from a historian today," Jake said, excitement battling with regret in his tone. "He found some documents about you, Dad, about your service in the war." Frank's heart raced. He always downplayed his achievements. "What did he say?" His voice quivered. Jake hesitated, overwhelmed by the revelations. "You were more than just a soldier. You did something remarkable, something heroic. They're calling you a local hero." Conflicting emotions surged in Jake's chest. Memories flooded in, cousins playing in the yard, family gatherings full of laughter, and now? Now, nothing but distance. He realized he had been neglecting the very man who sacrificed everything for him. Suddenly, the resentment he harbored against Frank's strict ways felt small in comparison to the love tethered to their history. That warmth, long forgotten in the shadows, sparked a flicker of hope within him. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The silence stretched between them, heavy with unsaid words. Jake's heart raced as he fought against his fears. He couldn't ignore the truth any longer. His father, a once vibrant figure, desperately needed him. A frantic impulse built within him. Maybe today could be the day of reconciliation. What if he showed up? As he wrestled with the decision, Frank continued to stare at the cake, the once happy occasion now a heavy burden. He didn't just want Jake's presents for his birthday, he craved the father-son bond they used to share, a longing that echoed in the hollowness of his chest. Would Jake step out of the shadows of his own challenges to reach out and bridge the chasm that had formed? As the weight of their shared history loomed, Frank held his breath, lost in hope, waiting for a miracle to unfold. Frank's finger trembled on the edge of the phone, still absorbing Jake's words. A local hero? The title felt foreign and heavy, not something he had ever embraced. He wanted to be proud, but the distance that clung between them was a weight that made it difficult to breathe. As the silence lingered, Frank sat up straighter in his chair. He could feel the hunger for connection inside him, gnawing away at his spirit. "Jake, Before he could finish, he heard a shuffle of footsteps outside. The door creaked open, and there stood Lily, the nursing home's activity coordinator, with kindness etched all over her face. The practiced cheerfulness in her eyes brought a spark of warmth into the room, though it was bittersweet. "Happy birthday, Frank. Just checking in to see if you need anything," she said, her voice brightening the air. She placed a fresh piece of cake in front of him, almost as if to distract him from the pain of recent thoughts. "Thanks, Lily," he replied, his voice softer. As he watched her leave, the uneaten half of the cake felt like a symbol of his own life halved, incomplete, and far from what it could have been. The laughter of other residents nearby echoed like a distant carnival, a reminder of the joy he once felt but now struggled to grasp. Back on the phone, Jake hesitated. He could sense his father's hesitation. "Dad, I need to come see you. Things need to change between us." Frank's heart surged at the thought, but fear quickly crept in. "Jake, it's been too long. Maybe it's too late. I don't want to burden you." His voice shook, revealing the vulnerability he usually kept hidden. "No, Dad." Jake's response was firm, an anchor in the turbulent sea of Frank's emotions. "I've been a fool. I've let work and life get in the way of what really matters." He took a deep breath, like someone about to dive into cold water. "You're my dad. I need you in my life again. I owe you that." Frank felt the tears welling in his eyes. The walls around his heart, built up over years of disappointment, began to crack. Hope flickered a tiny flame amidst a long stretch of darkness. "I'd like that," he finally admitted, his voice raw as he fought the rush of emotions. Then, unexpectedly, Jake added, "I want to tell you everything. About the past, the war. I want you to know how much you've meant to me all these years. And maybe I can help at that grocery store, get things right on my end too." A knot in Frank's throat tightened. The thought of sharing stories with Jake, of rekindling all those years of connection, filled him with a long-lost joy. "Come over, then. Please." Their conversation flowed, each exchanged word repairing invisible cracks in their bond. Outside, the evening sun began to set, casting soft hues of orange and purple through the nursing home windows. In that moment, it didn't matter how many birthdays had passed. What mattered was what lay ahead. Just as hope soared, the door swung open once again, this time with a whoosh, interrupting their spiraling emotions. Frank turned, startled, to see an unfamiliar face, a stranger with an aura of urgency. "Excuse me," the young man said, out of breath. "I'm looking for Frank Miller." Frank's heart skipped a beat. Who could this be? Was it someone from the past? "Who is it?" he asked, anxiety lacing his words, as Jake's voice faded into a whisper on the other end of the line. Standing at the threshold, the stranger held out a worn envelope. "You need to see this, it's important." As Frank reached for the envelope, he could feel the weight of lives intertwined, the urgency of a past he thought was buried. What was behind this sudden intrusion? What revelations lay ahead? The air, thick with questions, had never felt so charged before. Frank's fingers closed around the envelope, the paper aging increased, as if it had traveled years through time to reach him. He looked up at the stranger, searching for an anchor in the storm of his thoughts. "Who sent this?" "It was given to me by someone who knew you, someone who thought you should see this now," the young man replied, his voice steady but urgent. "Wait here," Frank said, suddenly feeling a rush of adrenaline. He lowered the phone hastily, Jake's voice still lingering in the air like a warm breath. "I'll be back." Ignoring Jake's muted questions, he unfolded the letter with trembling hands. The words blurred for a moment as he blinked, his heart pounding, each thud echoing in his chest like a drum of impending revelation. The letter began simply enough, "Frank, if you're reading this, it means I've finally found the courage you always showed. I've kept so many secrets and now it's time to share them." Frank's breath caught as he scanned the rest. The handwriting was unmistakable, belonging to an old friend, Sam, someone he thought he'd lost forever. The letter spoke of regret, of missed opportunities and unspoken apologies. It detailed an event from decades ago, something long buried under layers of guilt and shame. A betrayal that had driven a wedge between them and tangled lives in its wake. "Sam," he whispered, the name catching in his throat. The pieces of the past began to swirl in his mind, like autumn leaves dancing in the wind. Memories both good and bad surfaced. He recalled laughing over beers, sharing dreams, and then the shadow of a fallout that left him feeling abandoned. The stranger shifted uneasily, sensing Frank's turmoil. "Are you all right?" Frank nodded, but didn't he take his eyes off the letter? No, I'm not, he replied bluntly, confusion and anger fighting in his chest. Jake's call felt miles away now, and yet part of him craved to hear his son's voice again to share the burden of this unexpected news. Meanwhile, the promise of healing and confrontation with buried truths loomed in front of him like a fog, heavy and thick. The letter went on, revealing secrets about Frank's past that surged forward to envelop him. Painful admissions of love, loss, and decisions made in haste. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to digest it all. I thought you were gone. That you'd chosen to walk away, he murmured. The letter seemed to resonate with the very essence of his loneliness, bringing forth haunting echoes of what might have been. A small voice startled him. Mr. Miller? It was the stranger's cautious tone, pulling him back from the depths of his memories. Is everything okay? Not really, Frank said, swallowing hard as the enormity of it all pressed down on him like a shroud. This is bigger than I expected. The thought of confronting Jake while grappling with his own truths felt overwhelming. We can talk further if you want, or the stranger hesitated, his eyes darting nervously, before adding, you might want to talk to your son first. The weight of that suggestion weighed heavily on Frank. Was he ready? What should he reveal? As he clutched the letter tighter, another thought nudged at him, a longing for reconnection, not just with Jake, but with everything he had lost along the way. He glanced at the door, the world beyond waiting for him to navigate these turbulent waters. I need to see him, Frank said, determination replacing uncertainty in his voice. But just when he was about to turn back toward the phone, the stranger's eyes widened, clearly unsettled. Mr. Miller, wait. Frank hesitated, caught between past and present. What is it? This is important. I think you really need to know what's in that letter and what it means for you and your family. The tension in the room thickened, as if the very air around them was charged. Frank's heart raced. A puzzle piece had fallen into place, but far from the complete picture. What secrets could make tonight a turning point in his fractured life? He took a deep breath, ready for whatever lay ahead. Yet as he turned back toward the phone, a new urgency gripped him. Time was ticking, and with it came the promise of rebirth or despair. Would he dare to find out? Mr. Miller, you need to understand. The stranger's words melted into an urgency that matched the frantic pace of Frank's heartbeat. What awaited him when he embraced the truth? Mr. Miller, please. The stranger stepped closer, desperation mixing with concern in his gaze. You can't rush into this without understanding everything first. Sam has a lot to reveal. It's not just about the past, it's about right now, too. Frank staggered back, the letter heavy in his hand. All those years of silence hung in the air like a ghost, whispering secrets and regrets he thought were buried. What do you mean, now? He asked, his voice cracking. What else could there be? Things happened after you lost touch. Sam made choices. Choices that affect your son, Jake. It's all intertwined, the young man said, his urgency spilling over into fear. You need to know how deeply everything is connected. Frank's stomach churned at the implications. He had already drowned in memories, but now it felt as if he were being pulled back into a whirlpool of emotions, dragging everything unresolved back to the surface. Connected how? He asked, voice low and trembling. What did Sam do? The stranger winced. I can't tell you everything now. You need to hear it from Sam. But it could change the way you see your family and yourself. Frank wanted to scream. Everything felt like a high-stakes game where he had no control, the cards stacked against him. He could picture Jake on the other side of that phone call, his son's face shadowed with concern. How could he explain this? How could he tell him that the air between them was about to thicken with secrets from the past? Look, maybe I should just call him, and Frank began, but the stranger interrupted. No. Not yet. Please, Mr. Miller. What if you can't handle what Sam has to say? What if it fractures the bond you're trying to repair with Jake? Frank clenched his teeth, frustration boiling in his chest. You're just going to let me flounder here? Why did you even come? I came to prepare you, the stranger said, his voice calm despite the turmoil in the room. Someone thought you weren't ready to confront the truth alone. But you need to be ready, to brace yourself. It's about more than just old wounds, it's about the present and the future. Silence enveloped them, thick like fog. Frank eyed the letter again, the words bending and twisting into new meanings. If what the stranger said was true, then the stories from years past were only a prelude to the choices he faced today. Could he face whatever lay ahead without unraveling into the mistakes that had haunted him for so long? With a deep breath, he nodded slowly, uncertainty still clinging to him. All right. I'll hear him out. The young man relaxed slightly, but the look on his face told Frank this was far from over. Good. But promise me you won't react too quickly. There are hidden layers to this, things you might never have suspected. This could change everything for you and Jake, for all of you. Frank rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the tension coil tighter. And if it shatters what little we have left? What then? Then it's up to you to rebuild, the stranger said, his eyes serious. But if you don't confront it now, you risk losing even more. As Frank stood there, the weight of the letter heavy in his hands, he realized that the past was not just a shadow haunting him anymore. It was also a promise of transformation, a doorway to redemption or bitter endings. He took another deep breath, steeling himself for the conversation he needed to have with Sam. Each second felt like an eternity, and a restless urgency pulsed within him. Let us go find him then, Frank said, determination flooding back as he stepped toward the door. Are you sure? The stranger asked, uncertainty back in his voice. Absolutely, Frank replied, a fire igniting deep within him. As he pushed open the door, the world unfolded before him, an uncertain landscape filled with the specter of the past and the hope for a fresh start. What waited on the other side? Would facing the truth lead him to healing or deeper into despair? Frank stepped out into the brisk air, the chill biting at his skin, but he barely felt it. All he could think about was Sam and the secrets that bound their lives together. With each step, his heart raced, pounding a chaotic rhythm that urged him to move faster. The stranger fell in step beside him, his eyes darting around as if seeking unseen dangers lurking in shadows. Where is he? Frank asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The last thing he needed was to sound like a man unraveling. Just a little outside of town, the stranger replied, his tone serious. He has been hiding. It's part of what you need to understand. Hiding? Frank stopped short, a mix of disbelief and anger bubbling inside him. From me? From our son? Why? How could he just disappear? The stranger hesitated, then spoke softly. The choices Sam made, he thought they were for the best. He was scared, Frank. Scared of what you might think. Scared of how it would change things. Change things, Frank echoed, his breath hitching. What could possibly be so bad? A moment of silence passed, heavy and fraught with unspoken truths. Frank clenched the letter tighter, the crumpled paper digging into his palm as if it could anchor him against the storm of emotions brewing within. They walked in silence for a while. Frank's mind bounced between memories of happier days and the present, where every step felt like crossing a minefield. The stranger moved cautiously beside him, casting glances back, almost as if he were watching for an attack that could spring from the recollections of their past. As they approached a weathered old house at the edge of town, Frank's stomach twisted. It looked as if it had survived too many storms, just like him, like Sam. Would they be rebuilding together, or would this be the crumbling of everything? Stay calm, the stranger urged, sensing Frank's tension. What you do here today could change everything for Jake. Take a breath. Frank drew in a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment. He thought of Jake's youthful spirit, the laughter they used to share. Would he gain something today or risk losing it all? It felt as if time was slowing, each second stretching into an eternity. Let us get this over with, Frank replied, pushing his fear down like a pressure cooker ready to burst. With one last deep breath, he knocked on the door. The sound echoed, and as he waited, vulnerability washed over him. Would the man he once called a best friend be the bridge to his redemption, or would their meeting shatter the fragile hope he had of starting anew with Jake? The door creaked open, revealing Sam with eyes that mirrored the worry coursing through Frank. The air grew thick between them, charged with memories and regrets that neither had the words to express. Frank's breath caught in his throat. This was it. The moment that could either heal their fractured bond or drive another wedge. Would Sam explain it all, or would the mystery deepen? "Frank, I didn't think you'd come." Sam's voice was almost a whisper, tremors of emotion vibrating through his tone. And with that simple greeting, the tumultuous journey toward truth and healing began. "What happened, Sam?" Frank asked, his voice steady but filled with an urgency that demanded answers. The door closed behind them, sealing away the outside world as the two men stood at the threshold of their past. Frank could feel the impending revelation swirling around him. Would they be ready for what was about to unfold? As Sam opened his mouth to speak, Frank braced himself, knowing this was only the beginning of a story that could change everything. What revelation awaited him this time? Sam's eyes filled with a mix of guilt and fear as he steadied his breath. The lines on his face told a story of sleepless nights and burdens too heavy to carry alone. Frank watched him, searching for the friend he used to know, the one who would crack jokes that brought laughter even in the darkest times. But today, that man was hidden beneath layers of shame. "There's so much to say," Sam began, his voice wobbly. "But I didn't want you to see me like this, like I've become." Frank felt a surge of anger mixed with compassion. He wanted to shout, to demand the answers that had been twisted and tangled like a knot in his heart. But he held it back, opting instead for something softer. "Just tell me what's going on. Is Jake?" "Yes, Jake is fine," Sam quickly interjected, holding up his hands as if to shield Frank from further distress. "He's safe. But he can't know about this, not yet." "Not know about what?" Frank pressed, his blood pumping faster as he edged closer to the truth. Sam's gaze dropped to the floor, and in that moment everything felt fragile. "When Jake was born, I made a decision. It wasn't just about his life. It was about ours. I thought keeping you safe meant keeping him away from certain truths." Frank's heart dropped. Anger flared within him. "You think hiding things makes it safe? You've kept him from his father, from the love he deserves." "I was scared, Frank." Sam shot back, his voice rising. "You don't understand what I've been through. What I'm still going through. I thought if I kept the past buried, I could shield Jake from it." "Shield him or isolate him?" Frank challenged, feeling his own hurt bubbling back to the surface. "What could be so terrible? Why didn't you trust me?" "Because I was afraid of what you would do. What you would think of me." Sam's voice broke, revealing the exposed nerves beneath the bravado. "I didn't want to lose you, too. I knew you wouldn't understand. I can handle the truth, Sam." Frank clenched his fists, trying to seize control over his spiraling emotions. "Just tell me what it is." There was a long pause. Frank could hear the ticking of an old clock somewhere in the house, each tick echoing like a heartbeat in the tension-filled air. Finally, Sam took a deep breath and looked Frank square in the eyes. "Your father, he wasn't just sick. He had a darkness that, well, it affected me. You might think it's in the past, but that darkness crept into decisions I made. I thought it was better for everyone if I kept it in the dark." Frank felt a chill seep into his bones. "What did you do?" "I can't share it all now," Sam said slowly, "but it involves families, betrayals, things I'm not proud of. I was terrified of how you'd react, and after all this time every day I thought about telling you, but I never found the right moment. I had to protect Jake." The words hung in the air, brittle and raw. Frank's mind was racing, piecing together snippets of their shared past, searching for a hidden thread, a clue that would make sense of Sam's turmoil. "Protecting Jake would mean being honest with him too, Sam," Frank said quietly. "That's what he deserves. He is growing up in a world filled with shadows, and he needs to know the truth to choose the light." Sam looked at him, uncertainty clouding his eyes. The tension was palpable as memories mingled with new fears. Could they find a way forward as a family, or was the road ahead simply an extension of the past that had only caused pain? "Will you help me?" Sam implored, his voice almost a whisper, to turn this around for Jake? With those words, the fate of their journey hung in the balance. They both stood at the edge of something vast and terrifying, and Frank knew that whatever came next, it would take every ounce of courage they could muster. But was he prepared to dive into the painful history? What might they uncover about themselves, and about Sam's past that would challenge everything they thought they knew? There was only one way to find out. The truth, however painful, was beckoning. Would they be able to embrace it together, or would it pull them apart forever? Days slipped by since that fateful conversation. The air hung heavy with unspoken words, yet each moment offered a chance for Frank to reflect. It felt like walking on a tightrope, each step forward a mix of hope and fear. Sam was wrestling with his demons, and Frank realized he couldn't let the fear consume him too. He watched Jake play in the yard through the kitchen window. The boy's laughter rang like chimes through the stillness, blissfully unaware of the shadows looming just beyond his innocence. Frank thought about the truth, the kind of truth that could turn the course of their lives in unexpected directions. What would it cost them to uncover it? "Uncle Frank. Look what I found." Jake's voice broke through his thoughts, pulling him from his reverie. The boy waved a crumpled piece of paper, his face alight with excitement. Frank crossed the room and knelt down to meet Jake's eager gaze. "What is it, buddy?" "It's a treasure map," Jake exclaimed, proudly displaying the paper. "I found it in the attic." The attic. Frank hadn't ventured there in years. He never realized how much of their family's history rested behind that door. "Can I see it?" As Jake handed it over, Frank unfolded the aged paper carefully. There was something magical about the worn edges, drawings made with childhood imagination. Symbols and scribbles filled the page, nothing coherent yet everything nostalgic. His heart raced a little at the thought of what else might be in that attic, what relics of the past could shed light on the present. "Can we go on an adventure?" Jake asked, bouncing on his feet, his enthusiasm infectious. Frank laughed, trying to mask the storm of thoughts brewing inside him. "Absolutely. Let us find this treasure." As they made their way to the attic, Frank felt his pulse quicken. This was more than a child's playful game, this was a chance to confront the buried history that Sam had hidden from them. Climbing the rickety stairs, the air grew cooler, tinged with the scent of dust and memories. The attic door creaked open, revealing a cluttered space, remnants of the past standing sentinel. Old boxes labeled with names long forgotten mingled with toys, furniture, and more. "Where do we start?" Jake asked, his wide eyes scanning the chaotic landscape. Frank took a deep breath, a strange mixture of dread and curiosity twisting his stomach. "How about we begin over there?" He pointed to an old chest, its wood scratched and faded, as if it had witnessed decades of change. Dragging the heavy trunk into the light, they struggled to pry it open. With one last heave, the lid popped, revealing a collection of worn-out books, sepia-toned photographs, and letters tied with fraying ribbons. "Wow. What's all this?" Jake whispered, leaning closer, his silhouette framed by the dim light filtering through the small window. Frank sifted through the contents, stories spilling from the pages. Images of people he barely remembered surfaced, faces that felt like ghosts. And then something shiny caught his eye, a small key lying in the corner of the chest. He held it up for Jake to see. "I wonder what this opens." Just then, Sam stepped into the attic doorway, the expression on his face a blend of fear and longing. "What's going on up here?" Frank's heart thudded in his chest. "We found some things." He waved his hand over the cluttered chest, the weight of the moment settling in. "I think it's time we all confronted our history." Sam took a hesitant step forward, looking at the items scattered around. There was no turning back now. "Are you ready to talk about it, Sam?" Frank asked, feeling a need for clarity, a release of all that had been pent up. As the challenge lay before them, the past cracked open like an ancient chest, and the real treasure might turn out to be not what they expected, but rather, what they needed to discover together. Jake watched, blinking at the unfolding drama of adults, sensing the weight of their emotions. What new truths awaited them? Would they be able to face the storm, or was the calm before something even more disruptive? Sam stood very still, the light from the attic window casting shadows across his face. It was as if the years had folded in on themselves, trapping him in a moment that felt unbearably heavy. He hadn't planned to find himself standing in the attic, facing the ghosts of a past he had hoped to forget. "Frank," he started, his voice barely above a whisper. "Do we really need to do this?" Frank felt a rush of determination. "Yes, we do. There's too much at stake." He glanced at Jake, who was bouncing on the balls of his feet, his excitement punctuated by the innocence of childhood. Suddenly, Jake's wide eyes locked onto the key in Frank's hand. "What does it open?" he asked, shifting from excitement to curiosity. With a deep breath, Sam stepped closer to the chest and the contents inside. "There could be other places in this house." His voice drifted off, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Frank squared his shoulders. "Let us figure it out together. If this is what it takes to get to the bottom of things, then we can do it as a family." Reluctantly, Sam nodded. It was time. They were about to dredge up more than just memories in the attic, they were about to confront the truths that had kept them apart for too long. But the closer they drew to that moment, the more that tightening coil of fear began to unweave, replaced by a flicker of hope. "Okay, but we need to be careful," Sam finally said, stepping closer to the chest and examining the photographs that surrounded them. As he picked one up, a wave of nostalgia washed over him. The smiling faces, familiar but faded, were a reminder of the bonds they had once shared. Jake looked between them, sensing the tension. "You both look sad. It's supposed to be an adventure." His innocent enthusiasm softened the air, the warmth of childhood holding them in the moment. As they sorted through the trunk, they opened old letters. The words were delicate, full of love and loss. Sam's hand trembled slightly with each piece of history he uncovered, the weight of secrets long held pressing against his heart. "Sam," Frank prodded gently, "is there something you want to share? About our family? About your past?" Sam looked at his brother, taking a long, deep breath. "There are things I've kept from you and from Jake. Things I thought would protect us." Jake furrowed his brow. "Protect us from what?" "From the truth," Sam quietly admitted. The air felt thick, pregnant with possibility. "What if the truth isn't as scary as we think?" Their eyes met, an unspoken understanding passing between them. The attic felt torn between past shadows and future light. Frank reached over and placed a hand on Sam's shoulder. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together. We're family, right?" With their collective resolve, Sam finally pulled a large envelope from the trunk, dust swirling in the golden light. As he opened it, the paper crinkled, revealing a collection of old documents that had the power to change everything. Jake peeked over his father's shoulder. "What's in there?" Sam hesitated, his heart racing. "Only the beginning." In that moment, a small noise echoed from behind them, a soft shuffle that turned their heads towards the attic stairs. They were not alone anymore. Someone else was watching them, and the tension thickened once more. "Who's there?" Frank called out, his heart pounding louder than before. As they turned towards the darkened corner of the attic, another figure emerged, and the world around them seemed to shift. "What have you found?" the figure whispered, and with it came the hard realization that the past was ready to confront them in ways they never anticipated. What would they uncover? Would their bonds hold, or would the strain of the past prove too heavy to bear? The figure stepped into the dim light of the attic, casting a long shadow over the old trunk and its contents. The air felt electric with tension, each breath a mix of confusion and fear. Sam squinted, struggling to recognize the person who had emerged from the darkness. "Who are you?" Sam demanded, his voice stronger now but still trembling. His heart raced as memories fought to surface, flickers of a past he thought lost. The figure took a cautious step closer, revealing familiar features softened by time. "It's me, Claire," she said softly, her voice barely rising above a hush. "I came to find you." Frank's expression shifted from disbelief to shock. "Claire? But how? We thought you thought I was gone? She interrupted, tears glistening in her eyes. I've been living in the shadows, holding on to something I thought I'd lost. And I need to tell you both the truth. Jake's innocent gaze darted from his father to this unexpected arrival. Who is she, Dad? He asked, sensing the gravity of the moment yet remaining untouched by its weight. Sam looked back at the envelope, heart pounding. Claire, what do you mean? What truth? Claire took a deep breath that seemed to echo in the quiet attic. This house, it has secrets we all need to know. I can lead you to what you've been searching for. Her eyes flitted over the old documents and photographs. There's more to our family history than what we've faced. More than what we've buried. The room felt alive, as if the attic itself were holding its breath, waiting for answers. Sam's pulse quickened. He felt a long-buried yearning for connection blossom raw and fresh in his chest. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Claire stepped forward, her expression fierce but vulnerable. When your father died, it broke something in all of us. We thought the past was gone, lost to time. But it isn't. It's all right here. And I have proof. She reached into her coat pocket, pulling out a small, worn ledger. Claire extended it towards Sam, her hand steady despite the storm swirling in the air. This holds the key to understanding why things fell apart. It traces back to a journey your father made that changed everything. Frank's brow furrowed. You mean the trip he never spoke of? Yes. Claire nodded, a hint of desperation in her voice. He faced a truth he never wanted you to know. But it's time to confront it. Together. Sam felt the weight of the world crashing down on him while a flicker of hope dared to ignite in the depths of his heart. Could this be the missing piece they had sought for so long? Dad? Jake's voice brought him back, innocence woven with confusion. Is this an adventure? Frank squeezed his son's shoulder, his own heart caught in a tug-of-war between the past and the future. I don't know, buddy. But it's time we uncovered the truth, no matter what that truth is. The air felt charged, a mixture of fear and anticipation swirling around them. Sam looked into Claire's eyes and saw not just the woman he had lost but the key to rebuilding what they had all thought irreparably broken. What's in that book? He whispered, now feeling the magnitude of their journey shifting. Just then, a sudden creak echoed through the attic, stronger and more demanding than before, as if the house itself was awakening to the revelation. Whatever's in that book could change everything for us, Claire breathed, her voice low and urgent. And as the walls around them trembled with the weight of history, Sam realized they stood at the brink of something monumental. What happens next? He thought, the dawning realization rushing through him. They weren't just unearthing family mysteries, they were about to embark on a journey that could redefine their very existence. With hearts pounding in unison, they braced themselves. What would they uncover next, and would they be ready for the truth that lay just beyond the shadows? Frank stood frozen, the world around him fading into a blur as the enormity of Claire's presence washed over him. His heart raced with the urgency of long-buried memories, and he could feel the energy in the attic shift, sharp and electric. There was no going back, this was the moment they would change everything. Can we trust her? Sam whispered, glancing at Frank, whose expression flickered between hope and fear. I think we have to, Frank replied, determination hardening his voice. We've come too far to turn back now. Jake deserves the truth, and so do we. Jake watched them with wide eyes, innocent curiosity radiating from him like a beacon. What are you all talking about? Is it about the treasure? His youthful exuberance lightened the heavy air, and Frank felt a small smile tug at the corners of his mouth. Yes, buddy. Kind of like treasure, Frank responded, kneeling down to Jake's level. But it's a different kind of treasure, one that could set us all free. Claire took a deep breath, the weight of her revelations pressing down on them all. I know this is overwhelming. But this ledger holds the key to understanding your father's choices, the reasons behind everything, she said, holding the ledger like it was made of glass. It tells the story of a journey he took, a journey that changed our lives forever. Frank's brow furrowed. What journey? Claire stepped closer, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Your father, Frank, he didn't just go away for a while. He faced something deep, something that haunted him. Secrets that made him who he was, the good along with the darkness. It's time you learned what happened. Tension thickened in the room as Frank exchanged a pained look with Sam. They had spent years tiptoeing around the past, avoiding the shadows that loomed like ghosts. Now, the ghosts were here, ready to surface. Let us see what it says, Sam urged, his resolve glimmering through the fear. We can handle it, right? Together, Frank affirmed, feeling the flicker of hope igniting within him. We can face anything together. With trembling hands, Claire opened the ledger, its pages brittle like whispers from the past, each crackle echoing stories untold. This will be hard to hear, she warned, scanning the words in hushed silence. But it's necessary. As they gathered closely, Jake sat on the wooden floor, a silent witness to the unfolding drama. The attic felt both claustrophobic and bursting with possibility. Frank could feel the history seep into every corner, every shadow. I was afraid, Claire began, her voice trembling with vulnerability. Afraid of the darkness that haunted Frank's father, of the relationships ruined, of the secrets that threatened to destroy everything. Frank's heart ached at her words. Shadows of his childhood flickered through his mind, fights, silences, the laughter that once filled their home now replaced with resentful echoes. I've held on to my own fears, keeping you all in the dark. I was protecting you, but I understand now that ignorance only breeds more pain, Claire continued, her eyes locking with Sam's, their shared history bursting into the open. I thought if I could shield you from the truth, I could preserve the love we all shared. But love can't thrive without honesty. With each word, an unseen weight lifted, and Frank found himself breathing more easily. It was the start of a journey toward redemption. Why didn't you tell him sooner? Sam spat, unable to mask the hurt threading his voice. Why wait until now? Because I didn't know how, Claire replied, her voice tinged with desperation. I was scared of losing you both forever. Why did Dad decide to leave? Frank pressed, trembling in the midst of rising emotions. With careful deliberation, Claire pointed at a passage in the ledger. He encountered a choice that challenged his beliefs, made him question everything. The world tore him apart, but it also led him to love and loss. That makes sense, Sam murmured, his brows furrowing as he brushed through the pages. It explains why he distanced himself, why he was never quite present, even when he was. Yes, Claire whispered. Your father felt the weight of the world too heavily, and it shaped both of you in ways that could either bind you together or keep you apart. Frank felt the tears prick the corners of his eyes. This was more than he expected, more than he had been ready for. How do we fix this? He asked softly. We face it. Together, Claire said resolutely, the words hung in the air, echoing with promise. They stood on the edge of a precipice, staring down the foggy path before them, but Frank felt a pulse of courage surging within. He looked at each of their faces, his son, Sam, Claire, people he loved, bound by blood and shared history. Let us go find Dad together, he declared, electrified with newfound conviction. Let us uncover our truth. Sam nodded, determination rekindling in his eyes, as if he were rediscovering a hidden flame. Together, he echoed. Jake, glancing between them with childlike faith, smiled brightly as if he could sense the shift in all their hearts. The attic held its breath, momentarily suspended in the promise of new beginnings. As they stepped out, a calm settled like a soothing balm over the chaos that had intertwined their lives for too long. Multiple paths stretched before them, and hand in hand, they would face whatever awaited on the horizon, leaning into the light of truth. Together, with one last look back at the attic, where history clung like cobwebs, they moved forward. The weight of their shared past no longer defined them, instead, it united them, mapping out the adventure they all needed to embark on. Let us go, Frank urged, heart full, as they ventured into the unknown, determined to reclaim their future, and in that moment, everything shifted. Hope blossomed anew in their hearts, their whispering past changing into a roar, shaping the way for an empowered bond that would forge ahead, undeterred by the shadows of yesterday. They would reclaim their story together, all from the ashes of their regrets, standing proud as the family they were always meant to be. This was the moment of transformation, the beginning of everything. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending below. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.